Good evening, Desert Southwest Annual Conference friends, family, whoever decided that they would like to be a part of understanding what we are as the Race Coalition. I'm glad that you're here tonight, and I'm excited to introduce you to this amazing team of people who have come together around the issues of social justice, equity, and equality, dealing with the racial tension that we are seeing in our society today. Um, as you may have seen earlier, a video was put up to kind of explain the basis of the group. We came together in conversation with Bishop Bob, and obviously in this time of pandemic and seeing some of the systemic issues that have arisen from that, in the wake of the George Floyd murder as well, we wanted and decided that the Desert Southwest Annual Conference needed to have a team of people who could respond to these types of issues in our community, and be a resource to our churches, our clergy persons, our lay persons, in having a better understanding around these issues, and helping to diffuse and be anti-racist, as well as engage in dialogue. So to start off, I just want to introduce the team of folks that are on the coalition. We have my co-chairperson, who is Reverend Javier Oliveras, who serves as the pastor at Grace United Methodist Church in Mesa. Javier and I work closely together, as he is the chairperson for our Commission on Religion and Race, and I am the chairperson for our Committee of Ethnic Local Church Concerns. And so we already have worked very closely together in understanding some of the racial issues, and dealing with some of the ethnic and people of color challenges within our churches already. And so he and I are excited to be a part of kind of forming this team together. The next person is Reverend Kimberly Scott, who serves at Crossroads United Methodist Church in Phoenix. Kimberly is certainly a great resource to have on this team. She comes with a wealth of knowledge and connections to many facets of the United Methodist Church, and has done some work in racial reconciliation and certainly in social justice. And so I'm glad to have her as a part of the team as well. A couple of faces that you may not see tonight, but I'm going to introduce them as well. The Reverend Timote Piukala, who serves at Tongan United Methodist Church here in Mesa as well. Timote gives us an awesome perspective of the Pacific Islanders and how they are dealing with some of the racial tensions as well, and the effect of the racial issues on that community as well. Then we have Pastor Christopher Werps, who serves at Paradise Valley. He is not with us tonight. He is engaged in his Old Testament class. I don't know if he wanted me telling everybody that, but keep it under wraps, okay? We're glad that he is on the team. He is an awesome resource, and he is one that has been awesome in terms of marketing, but he also brings a perspective to this team and knowledge about his community as well. And we're so excited to have him a part of the team. The next person we have is Pastor Diamond Tate. She serves at First Gilbert, if I'm in United Methodist Church in Gilbert. Diamond is an invaluable resource, not only a connection to our younger demographic, but also someone who has engaged in this work as well in social justice, has a passion for social justice, and is really well connected in that aspect. And so I'm just so thankful to have her as a part of the team as well. And then we have Julie O'Neill, who's a layperson at Dayspring United Methodist Church. Julie is an invaluable resource. Every single person on this team, I'm telling you, has been really incredible, really amazing. And I knew from the first time that I gathered these folks into a Zoom call that I had, we had created something very special. And so we also gather with the support of the Reverend Dan Morley, who is the district superintendent in the North District. We're excited to have him as our support. And Billy Fidlin, who is a support staff as well. And Billy also comes with a wealth of knowledge in ethnic communities, and we're excited to have her participate in the discussions and be a part of the support for this team. And of course, I would be remiss if I did not say that we have the support of Christina Dillabo and the connection to our Desert Southwest communications. She has been an awesome part of getting you information, helping us with the resources and getting the information out. And so I thank Christina Dillabo as well. So to quickly give you an update on what the race team is, I know that you can read and you've probably seen a lot of the information that is out there. So just as a reminder, RACE is an acronym that we came up with that stands for reflection, action, courageous, conversation, and engagement. And we believe that this really gets at the core of how it is that we can be an invaluable resource to the Desert Southwest Annual Conference on issues of racial equity and racial equality. We think that we can use these resources to dismantle some of the systemic racism that we have seen in our community and in the world right now. We believe that the church should be at the leading edge of these conversations about racial equality and equity, living into our Christian and Wesleyan heritage of social justice. We believe that we are called to this time of self-examination, which leads to substantive change in our churches, in our conference, and in our world. We recognize that at this time of deep inner turmoil and struggle, as we seek to better understand the world around us and the many ways that we have been socialized into systemic racism and making ourselves aware of it, not just as white people, but also as people of color, and our engagement in these social systems that have been built over time, and how is it that we recognize those systems and begin to, like I said earlier, dismantle them. We are called to be people of grace who likewise extend grace, not only to others, but to ourselves. And so we know that this is challenging. We know that it's a difficult process for people to go through. And so as you begin to engage in this process and touch on this material, we want you to think about extending grace, not only to those around you as you engage in conversations and dig into this material, but also extend grace to yourself. Realize that you may not know everything. You may be learning things that are new, that are going to stir up, agitate, and cause some anxiety, but that's all a part of the process of growing. We also recognize all persons to be beloved children of God, worthy and deserving of equality and equity. And we want you to remember the statement, I am a beloved child of God, as we move forward in this process. This call tonight is specifically about our 21-day challenge, which will be starting in October, and the resources that will be available through this committee, so that you will have resources to begin to engage in conversation around racial justice, racial equity, racial equality, and dismantling and becoming anti-racist. So without further ado, I turn it over now to Kimberly Scott, who will give you an idea about what the 21-day challenge is about.
Good evening, everyone. It's a privilege to be with you tonight. In the days and weeks after the killing of George Floyd, my community here at Crossroads, we're looking for ways to do better, right? There's so much that we cannot control in our world. They wanted to have a tangible way of just learning and a tangible way of dialoguing about the current issues that are affecting our nation. And so just by venturing on Facebook, I found that one of my siblings, my clergy siblings in LA, was using the 21-day challenge, and I began to research it. It was created by an individual with the last name Moore. And from there, I just took the material and began to craft the 21-day challenge for Crossroads. And within those 21 days, I feel like most of us engaged in conversations that we've never had before. Most of us found information, learned things about this country, the way this country was founded, that we had never been privy to in all of our childhood, in our upbringing. You know, I'm a person that has 3 master's degrees, and it took me getting a master's in divinity to really begin to learn a little bit about the history of this country in terms of injustice and how the church has in some ways been complicit to racial injustice. So that's how it began. And then once we began the 21-day challenge at Crossroads, other people began to ask questions about it. Churches like Dayspring and the Fountains began asking, how can we get engaged? How can we do this challenge as well? And so each church in some way kind of developed their own plan to use the materials from the 21-day challenge. And so I'm going to pass it over to Julie, who has really been the head in creating the packet for Desert Southwest's 21-day challenge that will begin in October.
Great, thank you, Kim.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Kim has said, this has been a really great resource. There's been several churches around our conference who have engaged in the process of this 21-day challenge, which has been really exciting. And so we're going to hear from some of those folks a little later. But in order to get started, there's 3 ways that people can engage with this challenge. The first way is through your clergy person at your church. Every clergy has received materials, a leader's guide, and some supporting materials for the 21-day challenge. The conversations that the clergy might be having at churches might lead them to say, yes, we are in a place where we're ready to start these challenging conversations. And so as the clergy person or even other lay people in leadership at the church feel called to move in that direction, the resources are there, and I'll go over them a little bit. But we encourage you to just start and to really move into that direction. The second option is to, if you don't have a church that is ready quite yet to go in that direction, you as an individual can join this group and others around the annual conference starting on October 1st and participate with others around our conference in the challenge yourself. So it's an opportunity for you to engage with others across the connection, talk about those things that are on your heart with people that may or may not be at your church if your church isn't ready to go in that direction. The third way is if a clergy person is excited about this, but maybe not quite sure about taking the next step in offering it at your church. This is a time for the clergy in our conference to really kind of test the material out, see what it's about, for them to do some personal growth and exploring of the material. And then maybe that will help them feel prepared and ready to open that up as an option in their church's life together. So there's 3 different ways. There's, as I've said before, there's churches who've already done this program. And so the October 1st date is a kickoff for our whole conference, but we encourage you to start at any time. If you've already done that, that's wonderful. You can also start again on October 1st, or you can wait and start maybe later this fall or even this spring. So there's lots of options. We wanted it certainly to be very flexible for folks, to tailor it really to your context, because you as the clergy and as lay people in your churches, you know what your church is ready for. So we are here to walk with you. As you get started, like I said, the pastors have received a leader's guide that looks like this. It was beautifully, all of these materials were beautifully designed by Christopher Works, a member of our team. So it has everything that you'll need to have to start the challenge. We recognize that many parts of this material are, the assignments in the challenge are internet-based or website-based. You need to be able to access a lot of websites for videos or downloads or podcasts, things like that. So we recognize that that's part of the challenge that may not be accessible to folks. We hope to maybe offer a summary of some of the material that can be engaged in that may not need internet or other kinds of technological access. So we're very aware of that. There's 3 parts of the challenge that you'll engage in each day. So again, it's a habit building challenge. And the idea is that you start a habit of listening, watching, or reading something that exposes you to a different experience or a concept or something about race that may be completely different from what you're used to. That's very intentional. The creator, like Kimberly said, Dr. Eddie Moore, created it specifically around Black experience here in the United States. But the flexibility is that there can be lots of material crafted I mean, there's so much material out there around race relations. And so you can certainly use what's already provided for you. You can also add and expand on the material there. The hope is that each day you'll spend maybe about 15 minutes reading, watching, or listening to whatever the assignment is for each day. There is a tracking tool for you to write down any, if you're a journaling type of person, I am, so just to write down comments, questions. What did they mean by that? What kinds of life experiences would somebody have to say this, or what created conditions that cause people to act a certain way? So just write down questions, write down your thoughts, track your growth or your challenges over the 21 days. Like Khalif said, that this is not easy. We may hear from some folks in just a minute that say a lot of this material made me uncomfortable. I struggled with a lot of the material, things like that. But again, that's the place where we can look for growth and we can find those ways that God is transforming our hearts and our minds, hopefully to prepare us for ways to act for justice in our communities and in our churches. So another aspect of the challenge is not only are you reading, watching, or listening to something, but also an opportunity to connect with others. So during the challenge, there will be 3 opportunities that will be Zoom format to connect with the people across the connection who are also going through the challenge, to talk about what you're reading, talk about something that you have a question on, because in community is also where we find places of growth and challenge. And so we will be offering those. They'll be on the website. You can register for those. And then we also encourage you to continue to explore. After the 21st day comes and goes, we hope that this will be a habit that you're used to and that you want to keep learning more. And so there's also some resources if you want to keep going, want to keep exploring, but also during the challenge each day, if you say, wow, that was really amazing and I want to learn more right now, there's those materials as well. So we have now some folks who have joined us on this webinar from different churches. I think the Fountains United Methodist Church, folks from Crossroads. I'm not sure if we have anybody from Grace or Payson United Methodist Church, but also from Dayspring, who we have invited to share a little bit about their experience. What was it like for you to go through the challenge? And so we wanted for them to share that with you as well. So now, if I could ask the following people to raise your hand, and we'll invite you into the panelist side so you can share. Paul Bullis, Ellen Odart, Kimberly Bartman, Sally Lloyd, John Epps, and Susan Brims. And if there's anyone else from a church who has also participated, I invite you to raise your hand as well, and we can certainly add you. All right, as we're getting more and more folks in, let's see. I would, okay, I think that's everybody. I'm going to go ahead and put, so I attend Dayspring United Methodist Church, and I had the privilege of leading this 21-day challenge last month. So I'm going to put one of our members on the spot first. Sorry, John. But just invite you all to start sharing what was your experience? What insight did you gain from going through the challenge? And then, because we have folks on the call who may be considering offering this to your church, what tips might you have for churches that are considering offering this as well? So, John, if you could start us off.
Thanks, Julie. My name is John Epps, and as you mentioned, I attend Dayspring United Methodist Church in Tempe. And first, I just express tremendous gratitude to the conference and for doing this, and to Julie for leading our church in the 21-day challenge. And we started August 1st. And so I know for myself, having done some reading and trying to get better educated and to figure out how to be of action and to try to make it different and lasting for myself and to see what I can do. I did find the 21-day challenge to be probably as impactful as anything I've read or watched over the past few months. I think because the way it's set up, like Julie mentioned, that there are differences in the media that you explore, reading and watching and listening. There are some things that we all read, some things it's recommended we would all read or watch or listen to a certain, I kind of call them anchor pieces throughout the 21-day for some commonality and conversation, but also too, there were a lot of choices. And so I appreciated that as well. And I know as I listen again, as it's getting started back up in October, I'm thinking that I would like to do it again because I think it just continues to help my spiritual growth and, like I said, how to be of action. But I did find, I guess tips for me would be, I'm also a journaler, and so just in my little daily journal, on the back page, I have my 21-day challenge, and just for my own accountability. And then within my journal, even just writing a few things down that struck me that would serve for conversation points as we would get together with Julie and others in the congregation and on staff. So those are a few of the things I have for now, and thanks again.
Great, thank you, John. Next, I would like to call on our East District Superintendent, Reverend Susan Brims.
Hi. I want to thank Kimberly for inviting me to join Crossroads in the 21-day challenge. I have to be honest, my first thought was, oh gosh, I don't need one more thing. But it was a compelling invitation and presented in a way that felt very doable in the midst of everything else. John used the word impactful, and I found it very, very impactful as I went through it. Here's, you know, my scribbles as I went through things. It has a way of challenging me to consider my history and how my history does not include a lot of history of people of color. There are things that continue to resonate in my heart and soul as I think about this. It has certainly caused me to be shaken up in a good way, I think. I think about in the very second day, there was a brief video by Dr. Eddie, and I don't remember his last name, but he was talking very clearly about the fact that what is going on in our country around racism, what's going on with the political atmosphere is not a new thing. And it's not something that you can point your fingers at the president and say, it's your fault. He was very clear in saying that this is part of our history for generations and generations and generations. He was very clear in saying that the atmosphere that exists today exists because we've allowed it. We as white people have allowed it to exist and to continue to grow. So that's one thing, is we are no longer at a time to point fingers and blame. That's one of the reflections that come to me in the 21-day challenge. Another reflection I have talks about the educational system. They review different aspects of our educational system and how much of white education didn't include a lot of really good, decent Black history. And even more than that, I came to realize that what of Black history I knew, I chose to forget, chose to leave aside somewhere else and live in my nice little white bubble where I grew up and has been so much a part of my life. So there's a call again to go back and learn, to go back and listen and understand. And I think the last piece of reflection that I have right now has to do with the reality that we're at a place where we can choose to go back and put on our white denial and our white privilege and say, hey, if we just are quiet, everything will go back to normal. Or we can choose to pick up the very best of our faith and say it's time we work together to change things. And that's not just a passive thing. It is a call to action to impact our educational systems, our healthcare systems, our church systems. So impactful is a good word, and I'll stop there because I could keep going on. So thank you, Kimberly, for inviting me to join you in this challenge. And it's doable, and it's a good thing to do.
Thank you for taking the challenge, Susan. And so with that, we'll move to some of my folks over at, I'm gonna go to the fountains, then come back to the crossroads. So let me, Sally, could you share with us your experience doing the 21-day challenge? And you are muted, so let us unmute you. Okay, there you go.
Takes a moment. Thank you also to Kimberly for allowing me to participate with Crossroads at the very beginning. I had read on urging from our pastor the letter from Birmingham jail from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And I knew that I needed to do something. So I just happened to find out that they were hosting this challenge, and it was amazing. Even though I participated in that part of the time, and I was going to get our congregation involved, but it took a little more lead time. So we ended up starting our own 21-day habit building challenge. And we had people from the community in addition to our congregation, because we advertised it in the local paper. So that worked out well. At the discussion, well, at the daily readings, it was, as Susan said, just very impactful. There were so many things that I was embarrassed that I didn't know, but thrilled that I had this chance to learn. And the weekly discussion groups were also amazing, because I think pretty much everyone had aha moments in their everyday reading and in the weekly discussions. And I think it really made a difference for so many of us to become more knowledgeable and to become committed to continue learning and to take action. What else did I want to say? The other thing is that these readings and podcasts were very full of resources. So I have a huge list of books, articles, and podcasts that I am working on to try to continue my education. The other thing, one thing we learned is we started out without crediting Dr. Eddie Moore Jr. and some of the other authors of the challenge. So I just encourage you to be sure and include that in any publicity that you do, because this is something that they are offering free of charge, but worked really hard on making it available to all of us. Thank you again, Kimberly.
Thank you. Okay, Kimberly Bartman, can you share with us your experience? You need to be unmuted. There
Okay.
you go.
Hello.
Hello.
So just to expand on what Sally said, it was very eye-opening, and I realized how much I hadn't learned in high school and college about all kinds of history. So that was really good. So I was part of the Fountains 21-Day Challenge, and Reverend Kimberly was nice enough to lead us in the adult group. And that was really valuable to us to hear some of her perspectives of how she was had different experience than we did. And her kind of take on some of the readings and the YouTube videos and all that. So that was really great. We also invited a local group called TWC Fountain Hills, Together We Care Fountain Hills. It was a group of young people who grew up in Fountain Hills that started this group because they wanted to do a peaceful Black Lives Matter march in Fountain Hills. And they got some real pushback from some adults in the community who were threatening violence against their group, but who just wanted to have a peaceful march. So these group of young people ended up having a march after all, and it was amazing, peaceful, wonderful. And we invited them to do a youth 21-day challenge alongside of us. So they, these youth, this TWC group, added some of their own curriculum for some younger, like teens, because some of the stuff was pretty heavy, I thought, for teens. Especially some of our teens are a little younger side, 14 age. And so they added some, like a YouTube video that was just funny, but also, got the point across as well. And so that was neat to, in case you're going to do a youth thing. We didn't have great response with our youth. We have a very small congregation, and some of the youth that I talked to in the community kind of felt like they already got this stuff. They felt like, why do we even need a challenge? So I think a lot of, you might think about that if you try to engage young people. Not that all young people won't be interested, but I think they have a really lot bigger head start on all this stuff than we need more work as adults, put it that way, is according to a lot of them. So this was very eye-opening, and yes, it was very uncomfortable, a lot of it, but it was nice to have a safe place to share the discomfort. So I just thank you, Reverend Kimberly, and I really highly recommend this for all congregations. Thank you.
Okay, so from there we'll go over Crossroads, and I'm going to have Ellen Odart, who is not necessarily a member of Crossroads, but she's definitely a friend of Crossroads, right, Ellen?
Yes, Javier's like, yeah, I know her, I know her. I have to start out and say, if it weren't for the pandemic, I wouldn't have found this. So being able to attend church on Zoom, because I've moved further away from Crossroads. So I actually find that Zoom is a much more interactive way to attend church than just going and watching a YouTube video, etc. But so it piqued my interest when I was attending church when they were advertising this. And I had shared this with Kimberly that I didn't even realize what I didn't realize until my husband pointed out a couple of years ago when we were in Washington, D.C. at a hotel, and I walked right by the black guy at the desk to talk to the white guy at the desk. And he said, "Do you realize what you just did?" And I said, sorry, no, I didn't. Neither one of them was busy. And right there, it clicked in my mind. So I was curious about the 21-day challenge, and wow, definitely eye-opening, and the things that I've never even thought about. You know, the things where what it would be like to live in a world where not everybody's your color and you can't go to the store and buy the products that are specific for you, and just on and on and on. So it was very eye-opening. Each day, and I was able to stick with it each day since we're under quarantine. Only one of the days did I find that the material was pretty technical, and Kimberly, you'd have to tell me which one that was, but it was a little kind of went over my head. But
Pretty sure it was the D'Angelo article.
Yeah, that could have been it.
Yeah.
But the overall, the TED Talks and the articles that we read, each one of them showed a different aspect of something. So that was good. It wasn't just reiterating the same thing over for 21 days. You got it, you got it, you got it. No, it was definitely a different aspect to contemplate. And I think the weekly, we did the meetings on Sunday after church to discuss. And I think the biggest thing that's come out of it is that the group of us are so interested, we want to keep going, and we have kept going. And it's like, well, now what can we do? Where can we help? How can we be more proactive? So it wasn't just reading and saying, okay, well, I'm fixed now, and nice to know you. Plus the other thing was getting to reconnect with the people from Crossroads that I hadn't been around for a number of years. So overall, it was a wonderful experience. I definitely would recommend it for everyone. And I just have started reading Purple Hibiscus by, oh, you'd have to tell me your name, Kim. It's Chimamanda Adichie.
Oh, yeah.
She did a TED Talk about
Yeah.
we all have a different story.
Yeah, The Danger of a Single Story. She has some amazing works.
Yes. So it's piqued my interest, and I had read it in another book also that said, you know, broaden your horizons and don't just read novels by white authors. And it's like, oh, well, that's a good idea. So overall, and Kim has been a wonderful mentor for us all, and keeping us going. And so I highly recommend that every congregation do it. And we did have not teenagers, but a number of the people in the group are younger, and it's good to get their perspectives.
Mhm.
So trying to do it together, I think, with the seniors and the younger people is a good thing, because you get to see how things have changed. And, you know, some of the younger people said, well, you give me hope. You give me hope when I see white people out hand in hand with black people in Black Lives Matter marches, you know. So it definitely, to me, is a good thing to mix it all up and not separate it out.
Okay, and so our last panelist, our last panelist is Paul Bullis from Crossroads. Paul, can you tell us about your experience? And we have about 5 minutes left, Christina. Okay.
Yes,
Go ahead, Paul.
thank you. And Kimberly, I want to thank you very much for leading Crossroads in this 21-day challenge. And, you know, I have to admit, it is a challenge. It's a challenge in so many ways. I think Julie, in her introduction, said that one of the things that occurs in the challenge is that we are exposed to different ways of looking at things and exposed to different issues. Well, in addition to that, you know, it exposed me and how I've been complicit, how I have been privileged in so many ways that I had no idea. So that being exposed, it was a real challenge to me, and, you know, real difficult to go through. But one of the things about, you know, all of the materials and all of the discussions is it's challenging, very challenging, but it's not judgmental. And even some of the strongest comments in the materials, you know, for those of us who have been exposed and realize, you know, I've been complicit and privileged, and yes, for far too long. You know, what can I do to you become an ally for those that, you know, I have not been an ally with. And so one of the segments was on allyship. Well, what can I do to stand beside, to walk along, to support people? And, you know, there were some very strong comments. Well, this is helpful. This is not helpful. If you really want to be an ally, do this. And it was not judgmental, but it was you know, very, very clear and very, you know, to me, convicting on the things that, you know, I had done wrong, didn't realize, you know, missteps that I've taken along the way. So it's challenging in that respect, but the materials also provide us with tools to address the issues. I mean, by us, I mean those of us, white, privileged, old people, basically, you know, what are some tools and things that we need that we can use to help you know, become allies, to be cognizant and aware of what we do and correct our behavior. As I said, the discussion on allyship I thought was very helpful along those in those regards. Also the discussion of microaggressions. You know, what are some of the comments, the statements that, you know, I might think nothing of, but is can be a real you know, improper and aggressive type of statement or comment or look that I'm just not aware of. So again, the materials identify those things and cause me and expose myself and require me to be reflective, but have some tools like, okay, I see this now. Now I know what I need to correct and do better. It's challenging because obviously there's not enough time for me to correct all my behaviors and to make things right. It's a lifelong challenge, but it's a tremendous program, and doing it in church with a group, and Kimberly, under your leadership, it was a safe space to be able to think about and discuss and be exposed on those issues. So again, I thank you for leading us in the challenge.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you. Okay, so I guess we're transitioning back to you, Khalif. Question and answer. Diamond.
So now we're going to go into a time of question and answer. Some of you submitted questions when you registered. So we're going to address some of those. And if you have any other lingering questions, don't forget to put it into our chat box because we are going to answer them now. And only the panelists can see what you put in the chat box. So don't expect the whole group to see those questions expecting a group answer. So one of the first questions that came through the registration was, how can a missions and outreach committee use this resource? And I had an answer for that. As someone who helps lead the missions committee at my church, I think this would be valuable for the team to start looking at the ways that we work with our community and look at the things that we support and invest in, the programs that we support and invest in, and the ways that we really look at not causing harm or dependencies in our community, but really make lasting change and difference, and look at the ways that we partner with our community in a meaningful and impactful way. Is there someone else on the panel that has any other suggestions? I think another one is education. I think we need to have more education opportunities for our missions committee too, not just throwing money at programs, but teaching our congregation about why we're working with these programs.
And depending on the size of your church, if you have a pretty decent sized missions committee, maybe your missions committee could do the challenge by themselves first, and then you could all branch out once you've gone through it, and then do it with your entire congregation with multiple facilitators. So it just helps you to, for further reach. Yeah.
And I think too, it's important to remember that talking about race isn't just for the religion and race or social justice committees at our church, right? So the more folks and the more areas, like I think maybe it was Sally or someone else on the call who said, our youth group is doing things, and the youth group at Dayspring did it. We also had folks who engaged in the challenge, did not participate in the weekly discussions, but still went through it on their own. And so the more folks are willing and able to engage in the material, then I think people start to look at every part of our church life, every part of our community life through these lenses. And so again, that's the habit that we're building so then it starts to maybe trickle out to other areas and not just limited to one.
I want to chime in just for a second, just to say that I appreciated that Paul Bullis mentioned about safe space, right? And I think the idea of these challenging and heartfelt conversations that as churches, like I said, we need to reclaim our prophetic voice in these conversations and create that safe space for people to have this type of dialogue and know that they are in a community that loves and cares about them, that we extend grace of God in these conversations, and that people are not stepping into a place of harm, but a place of transformation and growth. And so as we disseminate this information through our committees and through our, even if you did it in a small group, it does have a way of being transformative, not only for that group, but for the community at large. As you grow and develop as an individual, you're taking that knowledge into the community and you begin to interact with people in a different way. And because of that, I believe it's a walk of faith that we're doing as we commit to not just the challenge, but to understanding some of the equity issues that we're seeing in our society. So I just appreciated the fact that comment was brought up as well.
Javier, you had something you wanted to add?
As I was reading the others, UMW and Church and Society, missions, at missions, we always want to go and do, and as all my colleagues have been saying, this material is going to you're going to do a lot of introspection in your groups. And so, because our tendency is always to go out and do this. Okay, so these people need shoes, or these, you know, the community needs this because we think that, but sometimes we need to do the work, and this is going to help us do the work internally, and able to see what really is what the community needs, or the folks you're trying to reach or do mission, the UMW, the church and society, whatever your goal is going to help you. It's kind of deconstruct and construct your biases, your thoughts, and so it's a lot of internal work. Yeah.
Another question we received is, what pushback did you receive during the challenge? So for those of you who have led the challenge.
Julie, you want to go first? Okay. I can just honestly say that I didn't receive pushback per se, because Crossroads came looking for materials, right? But there are people that chose not to participate, right? And that's okay. Everyone's in their own space and they can do things in their own time. And I see the idea was that we just gave people the grace to know that, hey, maybe you're not in that space right now, you know, and that's completely okay, which is why we also say it's okay to do this challenge on your own.
Yeah, I echo that too, in terms of certainly at Dayspring, there's different groups that have had conversations around privilege, white privilege. So in a lot of ways, this conversation isn't necessarily new, but it was also a good reminder to really say, you know, even though we've had these kinds of conversations, doesn't make us the expert, doesn't make us more better at race relations. It's just an ongoing journey. We're all at different parts in that journey, and so how can we continue to keep learning and growing, because there is so much out there. And so and that said, there has been some pushback, and I think that's just a matter of how we meet people where they are, encourage them into faithful and hopeful dialogue, praying. I think prayer undergirding all of this kind of conversation, no matter what expression or what kind of group it comes in, those are the important tenets, especially as us, as people of faith.
There was a question that came in about how over the summer a congregation spoke about race, and they asked for a Black member of the congregation to come and talk to the group. And they felt like it wasn't the right time and place. So how do you react to protecting the members of color of the congregation to have to come and share those opportunities?
Yeah, so I think that's a really great question. And I can tell you that at the beginning of kind of all of the craziness and protesting and all of the things that were going on at the beginning, right after George Floyd, that I went through a transformation in myself, right? Just a brief history. I was raised in New York, in the Bronx. I went to a white boarding school. And in fact, I just got off a call with some Black alumni from that school, and we are all talking about kind of the issues that have been raised and resurfaced from our own histories, that we are now having to kind of rethink and really are challenged within ourselves. To answer your question, in order to offer safe space to people of color in your congregations whom you would like to learn from, it's very simple. Just simply ask the question. If they're ready to engage in those conversations, then they will participate. And if they are not ready to engage in those conversations, they will probably respectfully just tell you no. You're absolutely correct. You know, as I was going through this process, initially I said, you know, it's not my responsibility to be teaching white people about their racism. There's plenty of information out there for them to go get. They can go get it themselves. But then I also came to the realization that the civil rights movement would not have occurred and would not have been so successful if it were not for dialogue between people of different races. And I realized that I have a responsibility, not only as a pastor, but as a leader in the community, to engage in these dialogues and to at least be open and receptive to answering questions, not necessarily to lead the way or lead the charge or tell you about how badly, you know, you're a racist, but at least to be engaged in those dialogues. But I had to come to that place that I was comfortable with doing that. So, if you respectfully approach persons of color in your context and you ask them if they are willing to participate in such a dialogue, there's only two answers that they may give you. One is yes, you know, I'm willing to participate and help you out and be a part of it, or no, I'm just not ready for that. Just respect their answer, respect their space. Don't try to manipulate or encourage them to do something that they're not ready for. And I think as we do that, we will all kind of grow into a better space of as we continue. So.
So there's been a couple questions about if materials are offered in other languages. And do you know, Kimberly? Julie?
Some of the materials that originally came from Moore's website, there are some Spanish-speaking options to some of them. The issue is going to be that most of the videos and the blogs are all done in English. That's not to say that there's no way to have those translated within, because like some of those are on NPR, and so NPR may have a Spanish-speaking option. So it would really depend on which resource you're talking about. But it could definitely be made available, you know, in Spanish. And I think do we have the packet already created in Spanish as well right now? Okay.
So we are working on making sure we produce materials are offered in other languages as well. And so we'll keep you all updated on our website for that. And we'll make sure we have a link to the Spanish information for the 21-day habit building challenge available to you all. Remember to register for the challenge that we are going to do. You can go to the website, dsc-race.com. And we are going to make that available October 1st. And the first discussion will start October 11th. And that's all the time we have now. And we will also post tools. We had a lot of questions about how to make this space more comfortable to have these discussions. So we'll post some ways to set covenant and make ways for the conversation to be a civil conversation and ways to establish covenant as a discussion group. So check out the website as we post those resources. And we're going to invite Bishop Bob to close us in prayer for tonight.
Thank you for this privilege. I want to say, first of all, how thankful I am that we have our DSC Race Coalition. Javier, Khalif, for your exemplary leadership, thank you very much. Kimberly and Timote is not with us and Christopher is not with us, but Timote and Christopher have led given leadership, and so Kimberly and Diamond and Julie, it is just a blessing to see all of you present and leading us. I also want to give thanks for our DSC support folks, Dan Morley and Billy Fidlin and Christina Dillabo. so much that you are giving to this. Since annual conference, one would have thought we would be in a place where we wouldn't have to worry about violence and brutality and loss of life. But it continues to escalate to a place where having the DSC Race Coalition is even more critical to us as Christ followers than it was before. It's even more critical now. So thank you all. And thank you for those who are joining this time together. I'm going to ask you to join with me in prayer. Would you join with me in this time? Gracious God, our loving Creator, how we wish that we didn't have to meet for such a task as we have been given. And yet the world about us is so filled with the animosity that comes because of racial prejudice, racial misunderstandings, racial violence. And so it is that we in this Desert Southwest Conference give thanks for the opportunities given to us by the Race Coalition. And we ask that you give us the grace as we look at this challenge ahead that is being given to us. What we cannot control, help us to understand better. What we can change, give us the courage to make those changes. Help us to, as we participate and as we inspire others to be a part of the 21-day challenge. The more we experience, the more we learn. The more we learn, the better we make our world. So be with us. Thank you, God, for this time together. Bless us, keep us well, and keep us safe as we gather in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you, Bishop.
Thank you, Bishop. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, and thank you everybody for joining us. We're now at 8:01 p.m. That's a minute past our scheduled time. I hope you all have a wonderful evening, and be sure to check out dsc-race.com to find when October 1st, we'll have the resources available to the public, and then October 11th will be the first week that we start the DSC Race Coalition video meeting. All right, stay tuned. Bye, everybody.
God bless you. We love you.